Now is the moment for Britain to choose its future.
Dak Gag TV presents the new original sub-series called BBC News.
Guess who's back?
Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Back again. Back again.
This is Walter Cronkite with the second part of this week's Big Black Cock News three-part special episode about political upheavals in what possibly are the three most important countries of the so-called Western world. In the first part, we began our electoral report in Paris, but now the time has come to swim all the way across the Channel, from Seine's romantic flow to Thames's regal tide, a tale of two cities where old worlds collide.
Teach me not a thing, can only get better, can only get, take it all from me, you know, I know that things can only get better.
But just before we arrive in London, let's first have a short recap on how we ended up here.
This, like any story worth telling, is all about a boy, Flash Thompson, the man I loved since before I even liked dicks. Too bad that he was hanging out with that slut Mary Jane Watson. One day, I wanted to be noticed by him so badly that I threw a food plate on him. That was a bad idea.
I think you're pretty funny, don't you, freak?
I just wanted to suck your dick, Flash.
I would want to suck my dick either.
Sorry for that. This new woke edition of Gay Spider-Man is obviously a story for another day, though according to our best informants, both Disney and Netflix are already at each other's throats fighting for the rights to publish this movie on their platforms. But let us now try our best to fully concentrate on what's been happening in Great Britain.
If you live in and around Blythe, you're going to want to hear this.
Yes, that's me, the United Kingdom. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation. It all started about 14 years ago when the Conservative Party took power.
The strong, the stable, the good and decent government that I think we need so badly.
It was an exciting time. Sure, David Cameron introduced harsh austerity measures, cracked down on welfare and privatised the Royal Mail, but we had the Summer Olympics. Same-sex marriage was legalised, Scotland decided against a trial separation, then it all came crashing down.
On Monday, I will go to Parliament and propose that the British people decide our future in Europe.
The UK has voted to leave the European Union.
I do not think it would be right for me to try to be the captain that steers our country to its next destination.
Her Majesty the Queen has asked me to form a new government, and I accepted.
Yes, Britain experienced what Australia is long used to. A new PM without the bother of an election. Theresa May entered the top job with one single task, to deliver Brexit. Slam cut 2.
It is, and will always remain, a matter of deep regret to me that I have not been able to deliver Brexit.
Enter Boris.
Because we're going to restore trust in our democracy.
Boris Johnson was the sort of exciting leader who wouldn't let anything stand in his way. Not gravity, not small children. But then COVID hit, and a nation already suffering the economic impact of austerity and Brexit faced a new cost of living crisis. Isolation rules meant families were kept apart from dying relatives, and even the Queen had to sit alone at Prince Philip's funeral. But lockdown laws didn't seem to affect Boris's own staff, who were caught partying as the Queen mourned.
Let me say immediately that I've paid the fine and I once again offer a full apology.
This scandal, along with Tory sex scandals and allegations Boris had failed to disclose home renovation payments, finally saw BJ fall on his sword, paving the way for...
I'm honoured to take on this responsibility at a vital time for our country.
Despite coming into office with a proposed mini-budget that tanked the British economy simply by being announced, the era of Liz Truss was nevertheless a truly...
I am resigning as leader of the Conservative Party.
I've just been to Buckingham Palace and accepted His Majesty the King's invitation to form a government.
The man you just saw there is Rishi Sunak. He's the first Asian Prime Minister in the history of UK.
He will be the first British Asian to make it to number 10.
It just shows how we are a multicultural nation, how everybody is accepted and included within our nation.
And as you've just heard already, the fifth PM since the Tories took power back in 2010. But the Brits know him mostly, that is, if they even heard of him at all.
What do you think of Rishi Sunak?
Who?
Rishi Sunak.
Who is he? Is
Prime
he the
Minister.
local? Oh, him, yeah. He hasn't been Prime Minister long enough for me to remember his name, actually. I think that's what it is, yeah. I don't know.
For the fiscal cuts he championed,
I like big cuts and cannot lie. Kiss the NHS goodbye.
and being richer than the king.
You won't know this, but Rishi and his missus are absolutely minted. Did you know the couple's £730 million fortune means they have double that of King Charles? He's twice as rich as the king. He'll be the first Prime Minister in history at the palace, like, this place is a shitter. My God, you've only got 4 butlers. How do you live like this?
When you are wealthier than the king, what do you do day to day to make sure you're still in touch with the kind of struggles ordinary people face? Have you ever gone without something?
Yeah, I mean, my family emigrated here with very little, and that's how I was raised. I was raised with the values of hard work.
What did you go without as a child?
We went out with lots of things, right? Because my parents wanted to put everything into our education, and that was a priority.
So what sort of things had to be sacrificed?
Lots of things, right? So,
Can you give me an example
all
of
sorts
something?
of things. So, like lots of people, there'll be all sorts of things that I would have wanted as a kid that I couldn't have, right? Famously, Sky TV. So that was something that we never had growing up, actually. Famously, Sky TV.
Back in May, in a manner similar to President Macron in France, he surprised everyone by calling a snap general election, choosing a rather symbolic date reminiscent of the greatest historical defeat in British history when rebels from their colony across the pond declared their independence.
Your game is through, 'cause now you have to answer to America. Fuck yeah! So lick my blood and suck on my balls, America. Fuck yeah!
And he did that unexpected announcement in rather peculiar circumstances.
The manner in which Sunak announced the election was just a comedy of errors. First of all, it was fucking pouring down, and Sunak decided to go out without an umbrella or coat or anything, so he was literally drenched like a rat. He looked like a kind of drowned rat. And then, on top of that, somehow, somebody close to where he was making the announcement was playing "Things Can Only Get Better" really, really loudly.
Priorities I set out are working. I recognise that it has not always been easy. Some of you will only just be starting to feel the benefits, and for some, it might still be hard when you look at your bank balance.
Unsurprisingly, the UK press haven't held back, with headlines including "Drowning Out" and "Things Can Only Get Wetter."
What's worth noting is that prior to this announcement, the polls weren't exactly favourable to Mr. Sunak's party, putting Tories at 20% behind their main opposition. And since he apparently didn't consult his decision with even the members of his own cabinet, many people were caught by surprise when they heard the news. One can only assume that they weren't probably too happy about having to cancel or at least postpone their vacations due to their wet boss forcing them now to face the prospect of soon losing their jobs.
I mean, this morning, amid all the speculation, nobody could really believe it. How's it gone down with his MPs?
Badly. This unique situation, where the ruling party is basically giving up power to the opposition without any serious fight, prompted some people to speculate that perhaps Mr. Sunak made some backstairs deal with the leader of the opposition, Mr. Keir Starmer. On a completely unrelated note, a few weeks earlier, former U.S. President Mr. Barack Obama paid an unexpected visit to the UK, where he met in private with both the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and the leader of the main opposition party, Keir Starmer. Mr. Obama smiled and waved to the reporters, but remained tight-lipped as he walked into 10 Downing Street.
Former US President Barack Obama is in London for an undisclosed meeting. A Downing Street spokesperson says the visit was a courtesy drop-in and part of his visit to the city. It's believed the former US president spoke with the UK Prime Minister about the work of the Obama Foundation. Mr. Obama also visited Belgium to meet with the Belgian royal family.
I think it's a little bit suspect that Obama just randomly turns up at number 10. And then
That's
Rishi
true.
a few weeks later is like, oh, it's just snap election, mate.
Yeah, that's true as well. That's
It's like, oh, okay then.
Let's now switch to our studio in London, where my good friend John Standish is absolutely dying to tell us more about what's happening in his lovely country. Hi, John. Could you please tell us what's going on in the merry old England?
Thanks, Walter. And hello there.
Hello there.
Well, to be frank, nothing much. The weather is bad, the food is bad, and don't even get me started on our football team struggling to win even against some tiny countries nobody has ever heard of before.
It was fast and furious to start. England again disjointed and Slovakia frightening on the counter. After a couple of scares, the Three Lions defence was finally breached.
And faltering England are on the back foot again.
Suddenly, this was a real test of character, not just football.
And if you thought the outside noise was loud beforehand...
There was now 45 minutes to save the tournament and for Gareth Southgate to save his job.
As for our politics, well, it's the usual stuff.
I want to thank you for your solidarity, your clear, unwavering support. I think the fact that you came to Israel tells us a lot.
I stand with Israel. We stand with Israel. The United Kingdom stands with Israel today, tomorrow, and always.
See, next week we see Passover, Pesach, the big Jewish festival. Will you be sitting down for Passover Seder here?
We will, again, with family, friends, and so we're looking forward to that. We have quite often on Friday we have prayers, etc., because my wife's father's family is Jewish and he comes very often to us on a Friday night. So we want our children to know the tradition, know the family history.
The main pro-Israeli party pretending to be right-wing has apparently noticed, after 14 years of being in power, that the British public may have had just enough of them, so they're now ready to be replaced by another pro-Israeli party, but this time the one pretending to be left-wing.
Some on the left of the party have been frustrated at leader Keir Starmer's perceived lack of support for the Palestinian people, especially when, earlier in the conflict, he failed to criticise Israel for allegedly denying food, water and aid to those in need in Gaza.
Hey. Yeah. Okay.
Just round with the Labour Party, just ahead of polling day tomorrow. Just checking you've got everything. Not allowed to vote out?
I don't vote for genocide.
Israel must have that, does have that right to defend herself.
A siege is appropriate? Cutting off power, cutting off water?
Well, I think that Israel does have that right.
At any rate, the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, said he's certain that he will be very much pleased with the results of the British election. As a matter of fact, the current leader of the Labour Party, Keir Starmer, prides himself on getting rid of any people even only slightly sceptical of Zionism who might have somehow still survived after the earlier purge in his party.
Labour intends to purge MPs who oppose Israel's mass slaughter of Gaza and who are left-wing. Now, by left-wing, just so we're clear, I mean MPs who support things like public ownership of our utilities, taxing the rich and big business to invest in our crumbling public services, scrapping student tuition fees, the rights of migrants, the sort of things which actually a man called Keir Starmer made the key pledges of his leadership election back in 2020. In the Kafkaesque world of today's Labour Party, supporting the very policies which Keir Starmer promised, he called them pledges, in the leadership election, and therefore form his mandate, means you now face being purged from the political party he leads. Now, many left-wing MPs have already been purged, including Jeremy Corbyn, the former leader himself, who Keir Starmer repeatedly called a friend, and then later claimed he'd never been his friend, and also said he 100% backed him back in 2019, and then later pretended he never did. Extraordinary man, to be honest. But it's clear the leadership intend to go for the whole lot, possibly doing so on the very eve of a general election, so the MPs in question don't have time to build a local independent campaign.
The situation has gotten so bad that a growing number of British voters say that they feel disillusioned with their politicians, and that both of the main parties have failed to properly address the challenges faced by Joe Public. Indeed, a growing number of voices is saying that the two dominant parties have become virtually indistinguishable from each other.
The Economist has introduced a new figure into UK political life. They've labelled them Mzheaves. Now, you can see here this fairly scary picture, an amalgam of Rachel Reeves and Jeremy Hunt. And then you have a headline, Meet Ms Heaves, the face of Britain's new political consensus. They say how Labour and Conservatives ended up agreeing on almost everything.
At least when it comes to their respective core establishment members. They seem to claim that the political system is currently designed to serve not the interests of the general public, but that of the big companies and their lobbyists, the party donors and the politicians themselves.
Today, reporter Polly Smythe has published a rundown of 31 Labour candidates with links to corporate lobbying.
Policy outsourced to these kind of groups like the TBI and Labour Together, who are working with these same lobbyists to ensure that they maintain power by not challenging vested interests. And what's happened as a result of that? Politics has become one big club, where people who used to work for David Cameron are now introducing Rachel Reeves. People who are married to people who used to be Conservative MPs are now doing lobbying jobs or becoming Labour Party MPs. There is this political class, whereas we on the populist left believe that the political class should be gotten rid of. We should be replacing them with people who represent people. They believe in the opposite. They want to close the doors to political opportunity and ensure that their group, their clique, has dictatorial control.
Yeah, see, I think all of that is predicated on the premise that these people are, these institutional parties are not captured by globalists. And they are.
Yeah, well,
so I actually don't.
I take that as
just what I mean.
As a given.
Yeah. Our country needs a bigger reset.
We need a great reset.
Let us just ask you quickly, you have to choose now between Davos or Westminster?
Davos.
Why?
Because Westminster is too constrained. And, it's closed and we're not having meaning. Once you get out of Westminster, whether it's Davos or anywhere else, you actually engage with people that you can see working with in the future. Westminster is just a tribal shouting place.
Are you surprised that your Prime Minister didn't show up to Davos?
Yes, I think our Prime Minister should have showed up at Davos. I absolutely do. And one of the things that's been impressed on me since I've been here is the absence of the United Kingdom. And that's why it's really important that I'm here and that our Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves is here as a statement of intent that should there be a change of government, and I hope there will be, the United Kingdom will play its part on the global stage in a way I think it probably hasn't in recent years.
What we are very proud of now is the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, President of Argentina and so on, so that we penetrate the cabinets.
My government will serve you. Country first, party second.
Davos or Westminster?
Davos.
This is a moment in time that will never come again. Let's do it.
Right now and for the future.
Let us, however, focus on this year's general election. As our uniquely intelligent viewers would of course know, political elections are a very serious matter indeed. And for such an important job as governing a whole country, we as voters can naturally expect to see only the very best candidates campaigning for our precious votes. It should thus be of no surprise to anyone that this year's campaign was focused entirely on the most important topics and presented with the adequate seriousness proportional to the gravity of the challenges facing our nation.
Mental health well-being of our kids is really important! What
about the economy? What are you doing on the economy?
Yeah, we've got to get it growing again, and that'll be helped by cutting the NHS waiting list, also by getting a much better trade deal with Europe, and by investing in the skills of our young people. So, we've got great policies for the economy, including the cost of living! Oppan Gangnam Style! Gangnam Style!
Where I live, I will have to vote Liberal Democrat. If I was living in your constituency, I would certainly vote for you.
Thanks, Dad.
You're welcome, son.
ਜਦੋਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਟੁਰੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਖੁੱਲ ਕੇ ਟੁਰੇ ਆ ਸਿਰ ਚੁੱਕ ਕੇ ਟੁਰੇ ਆ ਸੀਨਾ ਤਾਣ ਕੇ ਟੁਰੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਪੂਰੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸ ਕੇ ਲਲਕਰਾ ਮਾਰ ਕੇ ਟੁਰੇ
We got 21 days to go. If you like, let me know, let me out the shadow. Got 21 days to go, gotta go. Wish you had D-Day, where did he go? Say wish you had D-Day, where did he go? Life don't let a liar run the show. Life don't let a liar run the show. If you like me, let me know, let me out the shadow. Got 21 days to go, gotta go. 21 days to go. 21 days to
Okay, so you've got your own battle bus, an Angie Rayner battle bus is about to be unleashed.
An Angie Rayner battle bus. Yes.
Wow.
You're going to love it.
I'm coming on it.
It's got a fridge.
And if the Conservatives lose, what will you do? What's the plan?
If my mother had wheels, she'd be a bicycle. I don't answer questions beginning with the word if.
I'm glad you're standing there.
Do you agree?
Yeah.
But you know what I mean?
If my grandmother had wheels, she would have been a bike. You know, what, you know, you know, what the hell is, you know, it doesn't make any sense what you said. These are different races.
And after this bizarre campaign was over, it was the time to count the votes. And the end results were rather quite predictable.
It is a Labour landslide.
A Labour landslide. A Labour landslide. And then some.
Good morning from Westminster on a day of history. A Labour landslide after 14 years in opposition. A spectacular turnaround in fortunes.
We did it! You campaigned for it, you fought for it, you voted for it, and now it has arrived. Change begins now.
And if you're wondering how is it possible for one party, such as for instance the Lib Dems, to get many more seats in the British Parliament despite receiving way fewer votes than another party, like for example Reform UK, it's all thanks to the magic of our British electoral system known as first past the post. In this system, the only candidate that matters is the one who receives the most votes in a given voting area, which here in the UK we call a constituency. This means that unlike it's being done in more civilized countries such as Belgium, Denmark or Poland, here, if you didn't vote for the same person as most of your neighbours, your vote is practically being completely disregarded. In other words, the winner takes it all.
Winner takes it all! That's you!
Loser standing.
Is the Prime Minister worried that he is projected to be the first Conservative Party leader to lose a general election to a fellow Thatcherite?
So, Walter, to sum things up, it's basically like in that old song by the rock band The Who, from their aptly named 1971 album Who's Next, in which Roger Daltrey famously sang, "Meet the new boss, same as the old boss."
And that's all for the second segment of this week's episode. In our next part, we'll be diving into the political circus that is this year's U.S. presidential election. You won't want to miss it. And in the meantime, stay tuned, stay safe, and don't forget to always listen to your corporate overlords.
Thank you.
Well, an extraordinary admission on the stage from Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister. He has just told the country, rather than wait for the results to come in, that Labour will form the next government. He says he's called Sir Keir Starmer to concede, to congratulate Labour on winning this general election.
You have voted. It is now time for us to deliver. Thank you very much.
We would like to apologise for the way in which politicians are represented in this programme. It was never our intention to imply that politicians are weak-kneed political time servers who are concerned more with their personal vendettas and private power struggles than the problems of government. Nor to suggest at any point that they sacrifice their credibility by denying free debate on vital matters, in the mistaken impression that party unity comes before the well-being of the people they supposedly represent. Nor to imply at any stage that they are squabbling little toadies without an ounce of concern for the vital social problems of today. Nor indeed do we intend that viewers should consider them as crabby, ulcerous little self-seeking vermin with furry legs and an excessive addiction to alcohol and certain explicit sexual practices which some people might find offensive. We are sorry if this impression has come across.